Hi, I'm Bernie Landry of Rich Media Sound, and today I'm in conversation with Del Chatterson, the author of the Dale Hunter crime novels, as well as business books for entrepreneur. Del, welcome.
Hello, Bernie. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for giving me the time to have a conversation.
Well, glad to have you. Can you sort of give us a bit of a little summary of who you are and why the books?
That's a good question. I'll give you the short answer because it could be a very long answer. I'm a retired entrepreneur, writer now primarily, writing, as you suggested, the business books and fiction. The business books are a series of novels about Dale Hunter, an entrepreneur in the 1980s computer business based in Montreal, which is close to my true story, except for all the crime and drama that goes on. And the other, I've been writing for about 20 years for entrepreneurs as a management consultant for different clients and put a couple of business books together. One called Don't Do It the Hard Way. The other is The Complete Do-It-Yourself Guide to Business Plans. And those two books have been on the market for now about 10 years. And the second edition, the 2020 editions were just released in March. And in the last couple of years, I released also three novels about an entrepreneur, Dale Hunter, who is not me. Sounds like me, but it's not me. And there are three novels. The first one was called No Easy Money. The second is Simply the Best. The third is Merger Maniac, which was released in about a year ago. And the fourth novel in the series is called Bad Boys in Boston. And it will be released maybe in Boston if we can go to Boston by then next year.
Okay. Why don't we discuss the fiction section first, and then we'll
Okay.
move on to the business books after at the end.
All right.
Dale Hunter, where did the name come from? Where did the idea for even the novel come from?
Well, that's the novels, the ideas and the themes have been rattling around in my head for probably 15 years before I started getting words on paper. I started writing in a departure lounge in San Diego, California, on the way home from a trip one winter, about 3 years ago, November of 2017, I think. And so that was how it started. Dale Hunter was a name I used when I was doing so-called anonymous market research. Back before there was caller ID and I wanted to call a competitor and ask for his prices, I said, my name is not Dale, but Dell, or Dell, not Dale. And so that was my nom de plume. At the time I was doing industrial espionage, or competitive research, I guess is a better way to do it. So the name kind of stuck. It is not Dale Hunter, the hockey player that everybody thinks about, or other Dale Hunters that are around. And the other hero in the book is Frank the Fixer. So it becomes kind of a buddy story about Dale Hunter. He teams up with Frank the Fixer, who is a Somalian refugee. Um, his real name is Faisal Mohammed Abu. He came to Canada and became a bit of a street gang, tough renegade justice, enforcer of justice. And he and Dale became friends. He saved Dale from a couple of difficult episodes. And that character is based on a Somalian that worked for me back in the day. He was a refugee and he was my service and warehouse manager at one point.
Well, I have read the first one, the first
Okay.
of the series, and I notice in it there's a lot of reference to the time and the era in Montreal. And having been in Montreal during that time, I found it fascinating that you're talking about buildings and places that were no longer there, but your addresses and everything are correct.
Now
Now,
that's
did
good to
this
know.
just come from memory? Did you look it up? And was it
Uh,
originally going to be part of the novel, or did that just sort of fall into place?
well, it's easier for me because I did live here through in that period, and I remember the places. So I have, I guess, as I've said to people, to be a good writer, you need a good memory, a good visual memory, and then a good imagination. And you put the two together to make up the story. But yeah, I was careful to have it checked. My mother-in-law actually corrected me on some descriptions of Westmount, and other people have picked on, and sometimes I even got in arguments over with other technicians in the computer business of the 1980s who said, "No, that's not right." And I said, "Sorry, but it is right. I was there. I was a monitor expert. I do
Okay,
know
that
what
was
I'm
going to be
talking
my next question. Is that I mean, I remember the era because I went to a lot of these business shows and whatever,
Yeah.
And when you talk, I don't want to give away the plot or the story, but there's references also to traveling to these conferences and that. And
Yeah.
I
Well,
found
that's,
that for, I'm sure a lot of people that have been in that technology business, when they read this, they'll enjoy it, because I enjoyed it thoroughly because of that, those things I could refer to. And
well,
it
it was,
helped me get, actually in my mind, it helps me give a better image of who these characters are. So
yeah.
I like that part of it.
Well, you asked where it came from, and I've said to people, it's kind of, for the most part, it's my worst nightmares that never happened. Some of them happened, but not all of them. And what was interesting for me living through that period was the learning the technology. It was, it was cell phones were brand new. 1989, we plugged in our first mobile phone, and it wasn't mobile unless the car was moving because it was attached to the car.
And
And
then it was the old World War II walkie-talkie Motorola's that
yeah,
everybody
that's
had.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So this series, you've got a fourth book.
yeah. The fourth, yeah.
Is there going to be a fifth? Is this a thing that can continue?
I originally started, interestingly enough, with the series. I had a few ideas in my head, and I started with 5 titles and sort of slogans, one-line descriptions of what I thought it would be about. And the first one, no easy money, is you never win playing by the rules. I should be able to remember them, but let me show you. You never win playing by the rules, which is not Dale Hunter. It's one of the bad guys that says that. The second one, simply the best, is it may be simple, it's never easy. And the third one, merger maniac, it's about the mafia, so it's basically some offers have to be refused. The next one, Bad Boys in Boston, the theme is it's just business, it's never personal, and it's about human trafficking. And the first 3 are set in the 1980s with the technology of that era. The fourth novel, I've decided to bring it forward 30 years, so it's written about 2019, and we talk about computer hacking of the day, which makes it a little more relevant. And I also wrote it in the first person, so I'm talking about retired Dale Hunter. He and Frank are still buddies, and they're trying to track down a family member of Frank's family, a Somalian girl in Boston who gets kidnapped by the sex traffickers.
Well, if you run out of material, we're starting into the world of AI as well as blockchain and cryptocurrency. So I don't think you'll run out of material for Dale to have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, it's a challenge, as you know, Bernie, because to make a novel interesting, you have to make it interesting, entertaining, a little bit informative, maybe inspirational with some technology background, a little bit of history of Montreal or Las Vegas or Korea, New York, the places that I go in the novels. But you don't want to make it boring. You don't want it to be a technical textbook or instruction manual on how to build a monitor. It's more a matter of providing the background, make it more interesting. And I got conflicting input from my editors at one point, is that you don't need all that technical information. And the other editor said, hey, that was more interesting than I expected. I found that fascinating.
Are there anything written in there that some people may recognize as themselves, or maybe a joke that you had between somebody personally? Is there any, what do they call them, Easter eggs?
Yeah, the first people I have to worry about are family members, of course, to say, hey, is that me? So I changed all the names, but people still figure out who I'm referring to. Most of the characters are opposites of real people or based on real people. With even Dale Hunter, he's a bit like me, but I've exaggerated both his good points and his bad points. His obsessive compulsive nature and a few other things are a bit like me, only he's worse. He's smarter and so on than me, and maybe tougher, because he starts as being pretty naive about crime and the corruption that's going on around him. By the third novel, he's dealing with it. So that's kind of the character development I wanted to include. He's less naive, and he's less focused on his business, more focused on protecting his family and staying alive. And Frank the Fixer is kind of the backup tough guy to get him out of the jam.
Well, do you want to move on to the business book now, or do you?
Sure.
We can cut here now. We'll
Yep.
just talk for a second. You want to
Sure.
go on to that, or is there something you want me to cover or to ask you in particular?
Well, you can. Yeah, we can maybe talk a little bit about the reviews. What's the reader reaction? Maybe is the opening question.
Oh, okay. We'll stay on Dale Hunter.
Stay on
We'll
the
talk
novels,
about,
and yeah, we can go through the same set of questions if you like. Actually, that little
okay, but we
sort.
haven't done, we'll do the reviews for this one and then we'll go on to the next one.
Well, what I'm suggesting is let's complete the theme for the novels with those questions, and you can put
Yes.
it together differently, maybe. But yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
So
so we'll move on to the,
You don't have to ask all the questions, but pick those that we haven't already covered.
okay, let me just see what's, because I have a list of other questions that I have this list of 50 questions to ask authors. Yeah,
We haven't
so,
got time for 50.
well, I figure, I'm not going to ask them all, but,
Okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
from my perspective, the next question will be is, what's the reader reception? Have you been pleased with the reader reception? Just don't ask me how many have you sold? Are you making money yet? Those are the questions.
no.
Please don't ask that.
Okay, so here we go.
The
Stay
main
still.
thing is,
I'll
are
ask
you
it.
are you still having fun or not? I'm right in the fourth and fifth, so I guess it's fun.
Okay, Del, how has been the reception of this book? Does your family like it? People who've read it, what are the reviews?
Well, that was the fun part, actually. That's where I really became committed to this project. It was kind of a retirement pastime or a passion project, a part-time hobby, and I sort of pushed my way to the finish line on the first book. And I did get some advice. I spent some time studying and trying to make it as good as I possibly could with some professional help from editors and so on. But when I finally showed it to somebody who was not a family member or not immediate family, and they said, "Wow, we really enjoyed your book. I like it." I said, "Wow, that's really very affirming and keeps me going." So my favorite review is actually, I think, on the back of the book, and it says, "I love this book, but I had to get up in the middle of the night to finish it." So
Well,
I've
that's
been
always
quoting him
a
ever
very
since.
receptive review.
Yeah, but it's also interesting that, like, part of my mission was the little bit of a subtle message in support of entrepreneurs. We're not all that evil, and we're just trying to cope, and we have challenges beyond keeping the business profitable, and it's not a sin to make a profit. So those are the kind of hidden messages I have for the non-entrepreneurs. But what I found most interesting for me was that some business people who've been in big companies or worked in a non-executive capacity, they suddenly say, "Wow, I've learned a lot more about entrepreneurship and running your own business." And most readers actually are women. So you have to catch women if you're going to sell a lot of books, which of course is my objective, to get as many readers as possible. Women like the characters. They think Dale is a bit too good to be true, and Frank is really interesting guy. And but some of them said there's too much business in it, so that's boring, and they flip past those pages. It might only be a page and a half, but that's a distraction. So different readers are looking for different things. I tried to make it, as David Baldacci says, I like to read a book that's interesting, entertaining, and when I'm finished, I think, wow, I learned something. I feel smarter than I was before I started. So that's part of what I'm trying to do. I don't want to write sort of a James Patterson kind of action thriller where you just keep turning every page because there's another car chase, another shoot up, another death threat, another serial killer killing somebody. That doesn't interest me as a subject. It's not a book I want to read, so it's not a book I want to write.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on to the business books.
Okay, sure.
Sure. Why the business books? I know you've been in business for, God, I know you were an engineer, but you also were self-employed for quite a few
You're right.
years.
It is almost 100 years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you've got the experience. I know you worked, you did some stuff at the, what is it? The Canadian, the bank, what was that called? The CB?
Yeah, the BDC, the Business Development Bank.
Yeah, business development system. You were over there for a while, so you have the background to write a book like this. But what inspired you to do it, and why?
Well, yeah, let me back up to the beginning, if I may.
Sure.
Yes, ever since high school, I was interested in writing and the English language and the use of words, speaking or writing. And I had an English teacher in grade 10, I think, that was very good. And you learn to take care of things like punctuation and grammar and spelling. So I'm a real pain in the neck when it comes to proofreading, and even the editors, I end up editing the editors. So I have in grade 11, I was interested enough that I signed up for journalism class. So I might have actually had a career in journalism, except when I went into the class, the teacher said, Chatterson, get out of here. You're in the university program, and this is a vocational course. Oh, so I had to go sign up for geography instead. So that ended my career as a writer for a while. And then, I don't know, 30 years later, I started writing. And you mentioned engineering, but interestingly enough, one of the best English courses I ever had was first year engineering, where we learned critical reading skills, and the textbook was Time magazine. So they explained how every article in Time magazine is written like a short story. There's a hook to bring you into the story, and then they tie the ending back to the beginning, and they choose headings and pictures that support the theme of the article. It's not news. It's not fake news, but it's not entirely, it's not only the facts. So it's more complicated than that. So that I learned to appreciate a little bit more about reading. And then, of course, when I was a management consultant, I was with an international management consulting firm called Chatterson and Lybrand, then Price Waterhouse, and now I think it's IBM Worldwide Consulting or something. But when I was there in Toronto, I traveled quite a ways around the world in a lot of different industries, and we were always writing reports. And you had to, again, you learned how to use words to persuade the client to do what you thought he should do. So I've been writing for business for a long time, and I did a lot of small business consulting after that on my own, after my career running a computer business. I sort of learned the lessons, and I decided to share them with other entrepreneurs one way or another. So then again, I did a lot of writing. But when I was consulting, I was doing a lot of business plans, help me with this business plan, you know, for my web business or for my machine shop or for my pet store. I finally got tired of doing business plans, so I said, I have a better idea. I'll write the damn book. Now you don't have to hire me at $200 an hour. Buy my book. It's only 20 bucks. You can read it in a few hours, and then you know everything I know about business.
Are they companion books, or are they two different approaches?
Well, again, they're meant to be part of a series. I wasn't arrogant enough to say entrepreneurship for dummies or idiots. It was more entrepreneurship from your Uncle Ralph. So I invented a character a little bit based on the success of the wealthy barber. It's not an academic theoretical lecture by some ivory tower professor, and it's not a celebrity CEO like, we won't mention the one who's currently president of the US, but Richard Branson or Steve Jobs. They write a book and everybody wants to read it and figure out what they did. But of course, it's hard to relate to somebody who went from zero to multi-billionaire. And, you know, and well, you know, you're not reading it on your corporate jet to get advice from. For most of us, it's how do I manage my small business? I'm the owner, I maybe have a partner, I may have a family in my business. What are the things I need to do better in order to succeed? So that's who the book is written for, and it's based on all my own experiences, the mistakes I made, the lessons I learned, the clients and managers I worked with, the good ones and the bad ones. You learn from both, as you know. And so the first book is how to write a business plan that works, whether you're starting a business, managing a business, or exiting a business, because those are the three stages you need to have a business plan. And it's a short book, but it covers all the subjects and gives you some pretty practical ideas and gives you a real life example. The second book, Don't Do It the Hard Way. It starts a bit like The Wealthy Barber. The Wealthy Barber, if you remember, is the best-selling Canadian book on financial advice for personal financial management.
Yes.
And it's the story of 3 or 4 young people who visited a barber regularly and discovered that he had more money than any of them because he managed his savings well. So the Wealthy Barber is just or the Uncle Ralph is kind of the same thing. Let me share my experiences, my ideas and opinions and advice with you. And in this case, it's not a barber shop, but it's a group called the E2E, Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur Forum, where they meet for breakfast and they share stories, and Uncle Ralph sort of guides them through different subjects. So the first part of the book is mostly that sort of story and how to avoid the 7 biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make, which I could list another time. If I could remember them, I might have to look at the book. 7 is too many for me to remember all the time, but I can go through that at another point. So that book is really more about how to manage your business, avoid the mistakes, whether it's sales management, customer service, financing, how to negotiate with your bank, how to manage employees, and so on. And there's another section which is essentially a collection of my blog posts over the last 10 years. It's called Random Ramblings of Uncle Ralph. So it covers all the subjects from leadership to sales management, cold calling, and so on. So that's what gave rise to the two books. And I published them first in 2014. And then this year I released updated and expanded and improved editions now that I'm a better writer with all the experience I've had. Even the fiction helped me write better nonfiction. And in some cases, people that read both will notice that some of the stories are told in both fiction and nonfiction. Now they're a little different, presented a little bit differently, but the lesson, if there is a lesson, and anybody's interested in learning the lesson, you may get it from either one. So what I find is that entrepreneurs are busy people. They want to read the business book. They want to find the chapter about my current problem and what's the solution that Uncle Ralph recommends. And if they read for entertainment, they may read one of the novels. But if they like Jean Le Carré or John Grisham or something like that, then some entrepreneurs do read for recreation or relaxation, and they find it, hey, just find me a book where the entrepreneur is the hero instead of the bad guy. And that was my intent, of course, was to make sure that people understand. And entrepreneurs are not always the bad guy.
So which do you find harder to do, to write the nonfiction or the fiction?
The fiction has been harder. That's been more of a learning experience. It's more enjoyable because you really do test several things. But I call myself now an entrepreneur because a lot of the skills of an entrepreneur you have to bring to writing fiction, which is project management, managing yourself, managing your time schedule, dedicating time, making the effort, learn the fundamentals and then how to make it better, all those kinds of things. And putting in the work, learning how to do it, and then doing it. But with the business books are relatively easy because I'm writing from my experience, and I'm good enough at the English language that I can get the story across. I didn't need a lot of editing or improvement. With the fiction, I needed to learn a lot about what makes it a successful book in terms of what will appeal to readers. And I had to learn how to add my creative imagination and write a logical book. So I found from the first to the second to the third, my process improved. But now that I'm writing the fourth one, I have a process that the first three, it was a little bit of a mixed method of writing an outline, writing a paragraph, writing a scene, writing an ending, and then working backwards. So now I'm determined. And actually, I've taken a couple of master classes from James Patterson, Baldacci, and many others who sort of share their. Stephen King actually is a very good book on writing, which most authors have read and recommend. And he says basically the simple thing is you take an ordinary person and you put them in a difficult dilemma and then let them figure out how to get out of it. And that's kind of the process I used as well.
Right. Let's talk about marketing the book. I know before the pandemic, you had gone around to bookstores and different places to promote it. When you did that, did you promote one book at one event, the other books, or did you mix the two together?
Well,
why did you do what you did?
Well, actually, that's a good question because as you'll see behind me, I sort of have two different channels. There's two different pen names and two different. There's Del. This is Del Chatterson, your Uncle Ralph, and on the other side I've got Delvin R. Chatterson. The R stands for Ralph, by the way. And so Delvin R. Chatterson, the fiction writer. But in fact, it's all the same guy. I may wear two hats. I have two different types of stories, but I'm telling the same stories in different ways with the purpose of, first of all, being interesting and entertaining, helping people learn something, and getting a message out, whether it's social issues or business issues or strategies, tactics for succeeding at whatever, managing your kids maybe, or instead of managing your stock portfolio. So I throw in everything I think, and I guess that's part of what I recognize, even in the business books, and you know this too, Bernie, and from the point of view of being in management or consulting or selling professional services, you have to be able to tell a story for people to relate to who you are, how you can help me, why you can help me. You've done this before. This is what happened with the other guy. And yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been there, I've done that. I've got the souvenir t-shirt, I'm moving on to something else. So that storytelling, I discovered I enjoy. I like it. I find people, and I enjoy the feedback, whether people are laughing or nodding their head or taking notes. It's all good confirmation that you're getting through to them. So that's what keeps me going.
Great. We're talking with Del Chatterson, the author of the Dale Hunter series, as well as business books for entrepreneurs. This is the second of the four. The fourth one isn't done yet, right? It's going to come out.
The fourth one, I'm just about to release the first 5 chapters to the editors to see if I'm going in the right direction. And then I'll finish it. I have an outline from start to finish. So that was, I shaved just to meet you today, actually. I was determined not to shave until I finished the first draft. That's part of the self-management and the writing process. I was telling you, but yeah.
So, is there anything you want to cover other than what we've done, and then we'll do it. We'll do a retake of the closing, just so we have an end.
Okay. No, that was very good. In fact, thanks for listening so patiently. I tend to ramble.
No, it's also trying to find out where to go. I've listened to you trying to figure out what a question I should ask next or whatever, trying to find something that would be of interest. So I try to look at it as somebody who.
No, it's good. I think we'll be able to extract some.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get some stuff out of it. You may.
Yes, and that's for me, Bernie. That's all it's about. Is just having something. It's not the quality of the video or the sound or even the
Well,
content.
the sound's been very good. I haven't heard too much at my end. It sounds fairly clean.
Yeah, no, I think we'll get some good extracts and we'll make good use of them.
Okay,
And
so let's wrap up the ending, and then we can,
I got a long list of authors you should talk to.
let's wrap up the closing, and then I'll stop recording, and because it has to download, I think, or something. I've never.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll see what happens. Anyway, well, thank you very much, Del. We've been talking with Del Chatterson, the author of the Dale Hunter mystery novel series, as well as the business books for entrepreneurs. Thank you very much, Del.
It was a pleasure, Bernie. Thank you. I hope readers enjoy the books, and they can look me up on delvinchatterson.com with my author website, or learningentrpreneurship.com for entrepreneurs. Thanks.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now.